Well, these lemon trees have now been overwintering in this conservatory since we brought them in at the end of last season. And we've kept them quite dry compost-wise. And you can see they're in quite a bright sunny position, still in their large pots. And you can see by the dryness of the compost that we've not been overwatering these, which is the secret to keeping them just ticking over during the winter months. But if we have a look up at the tops, you can see particularly on this one we're starting to get some flower bud formation, and it's just starting to break now, and it's now the time of year with the increasing temperatures and light conditions that we're getting to bring these plants back into full growth. What we want to do is encourage those young flower buds to come out and pollinate, and we also want to encourage some new leaf growth and some stem growth to produce a good crop of fresh young leaves to power these plants over the coming season. So what we're going to do today is pick over these plants and remove any old dead flowers and dead wood, generally shake the plants if they need it and remove anything that looks a bit diseased. We're also going to inspect them for any flat bugs and the leaf mites that these tend to get. These scale insects can be a real problem. We have been keeping an eye on these plants over winter to make sure that the numbers are reduced, but we want to make sure that these, as the temperature warms, haven't got an infestation with young scale insects. And we're also going to start to water and feed these. Now the first thing to do with that is to remove top couple of inches of compost and replace that with a citrus based compost, a proprietary compost mix. And then the other thing we're going to do is make up a summer feed using a standard citrus feed mix, and we're really going to saturate this compost so that it is completely drenched. So let's crack on and do some of those things now. So what I've done just using my fingers is scrape back the top inch to inch and a half of compost, and you'll see you'll just start to expose the top layer of roots on the compost. As soon as you reach those, stop digging, and we're replacing it with a specialist Mediterranean and citrus plant compost, and we're basically just replacing what we've removed and putting a fresh top dressing on these plants. And this is going to act both as a feed and a mulch for these plants during this summer season. It's going to replenish some of the nutrients that they'll have removed from this soil, and some of that will get washed down as you're watering from the top into the remaining compost. So we'll just firm that nicely so it doesn't blow around when we take these plants out. These aren't going to be put out yet into the outdoors. It's still too much a risk of frost for these plants, and we don't want to get any of this fresh young bud growth that's coming on these damaged, and you don't really want to take any risks until the chance of night frosts really settled. And even in south of England where we're growing these plants, that may be middle of May or the end of May. If we do take the chance and put them out in middle of May, then we will look at the weather forecasts and use one of the apps to just check and make sure there's no risk of the temperature dropping and us getting a night air frost, which would damage these growths. And when we do start taking them out, we'll do that gently. We'll take them out for the day if we're getting a nice sunny forecast, and then bring them back at night into the conservatory just to acclimatise the fruit trees to that change in temperature. But you really want to avoid exposing them to any risk of frost in the first instance. So what I'm going to do now is make up a liquid feed, and then we'll absolutely drench these pots so that they are sitting in water for 5 to 10 minutes, and then remove them from the trays and let them drain completely, just so you are ensuring that there's no dry areas left in that base compost layer, and that will start these plants into quite vigorous growth, and we should see these starting to shoot and flower really nicely over the next month. That's the water gone in at the top, and I'm just going to let that soak slowly down through this compost, and I'm really wanting to completely saturate every bit, so I'll be looking for that tray to be really full up And if it's not after 10 to 15 minutes, then keep watering from the top. Probably best to do this if you can outdoors on a lawn or somewhere where you can really ensure that you're adding excess water to what you think would normally be the case, to make sure that all the compost is completely saturated.